tonight's information and briefing session. Welcome elected members, staff and public in the gallery and those presenting as well just shortly. Before we kick off, just a special welcome to a newly elected member, Will Glasbrook. Congratulations on so your first workshop, first council meeting in a few weeks' time when we did the official swearing in this week in the council office. So we'll put that in the agenda. Welcome, Will. We have had a number of apologies, which is why the directors have come forward to fill a bit of a void. Thank you for doing that. So apologies from Councillor Oil, Lafleur, Johns, Meyer and Kristen Murdoch. We'll start off and Ian and Kevin. So Kevin from Real Screen Fishing Charters and Ian from the Point Turton Coast Guard. I'm going to present a video and just speak to us in relation to the issues currently at hand at the Point Turton boat ramp. So if you'd both like to come up to the lectern please, and the floor is yours. I guess after the video's played and questions from the members. They may have a little update as well, but yeah. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thanks for the invitation from the Mayor. As hopefully you're all aware, there's some pretty major issues at the Point Turton boat ramp. It's an ongoing process, and I suppose I'm here to basically show the councillors and yourselves what's actually happening on the ground at Point Turton. I've thrown a little video together, so please excuse any amateur efforts. But it is actually from, most of the footage has been taken within the last 12 months, particularly in the last 3 weeks. And just a little bit of background as well. There's been 3 major emergencies since Christmas, which is why we invited the commander from Point Turton Coast Guard, Ian Johnson. And those 3 emergencies we'll explain in detail later after the video. But I think it's really important that the council appreciates that we've got a bit of a problem. We'd like to see a proactive approach for the future, and probably don't get it to this particular stage.
So welcome to the Point Turton boat ramp. It's mid-February 2026. Just to give you an example of what's actually happening in the boat ramp itself, we've got major issues with access. What's happened is over the last 5-6 years, the whole area once again is silting up. We've got the main sandbar, which actually does become high and dry on most tides between point 2 and point 3. We've got a very, very small access area, a small channel. Then we've got this new sandbar that's actually formed on the inside. That's creating a lot of issues at the moment. That's only formed in the last 18 months to 2 years on a low tide that's almost exposed as well. At the moment, most boats will be struggling to get through. When the tide drops another 20 centimetres, no boat is accessing in or out the Point Turton boat ramp, whether it's an emergency, family, tourist or a local, doesn't matter who you are. Any medium boat, any small boat is not getting through that actual sandbar itself. Yeah, you might want to push him, tell him to go back to the right. That's too late. Your mate's in trouble. He should be able to get off, but he can't keep going where he is. So he's in trouble. This is the first time I've been.
The first time I've ever been at Point Turton, and I think the biggest deterrent of Point Turton is that right there.
So,
ability to access.
So how many boats? Some of you guys have come from Queensland.
From Queensland, between 9 and 15 boats per stop, and this is our first year here, and I think the biggest red flag so far is that the entrance to and from the boat ramp. Everything's good in the town except that right
And
there.
so at the moment you've got one of your mates stuck down to his yachts trying to get his boat off the sandbar.
Out of the boat, he's done. Swimming.
Yes. So as you can appreciate, this is pretty good examples of what's actually been happening at Point 2. In most of the footage you've just seen, there has been actually water, so boats are actually trying to attempt to come in and out. Okay, in these couple of photos, we just give you an idea of why there's community backlash at the moment. We've got an 80-year-old man that's stuck at the boat ramp. He's got out of the boat fully clothed, and he has to push his own vessel off the sandbar itself. Obviously not a great situation for anyone, let alone someone in the age of 80. In this footage, we've actually got an emergency vessel coming in. It's the Border Force. They're actually coming in on generally a pretty good tide, but they're getting stuck. They are ploughing through over the sandbar to get back into the boat ramp. So in this case, if it was a low tide, either to leave the boat ramp or to come back in, that vessel, there is literally no way they could actually access our Gulf waters in an emergency.
So that's pretty standard, particularly this summer, which leads to the emergency that I actually had recently with clients. I was about 5 days out. A woman in my boat immediately went into convulsions. Eyes fell back in the back of the head. It was a pretty major situation. I had rang AAA. Within 15 minutes, I'm back at the boat ramp, and I've got a 0.3 tide, which theoretically shouldn't have any issue at all. But what happens on a 0.3, you struggle to get through, but if you get a southeasterly wind, unfortunately in the summer, it drags all the salt water out of the bay, and therefore the boat ramp's got minimal access. On that occasion, there was obviously panic for myself, the clients. I've reached the boat ramp, I'm semi-stuck, and that's pretty much why we're here today. The situation actually worked out alright. I did plough through, but there's been 2 other occasions this summer, which Ian can emphasise, that could have easily involved other members of the public and could have easily went, pretty heroic way. So, over to you, mate.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, Mayor Gray, for inviting us along tonight. I don't know if you noticed, but that one of those strandings there was somebody walking alongside the propeller, trying to get the boat off the sandbar. That could be really, really serious. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Kevin invited me along so you get it straight from the horse's mouth. We look after the local marine rescue. A lot of what we do is breakdowns, they're non-urgent, and not much of what we do gets reported. We just get the job done and get back. So I thought it's important to come along and give you 2 scenarios that's happened just this summer alone. Late December last year, we got a call from Police Water Ops saying there was a stand-up paddleboarder off Berners Beach campground unable to return to shore due to the strong offshore winds. The winds were gusting about 25 to 30 knots. They shouldn't have been out there, but they were. We launched a rescue vessel. In the meantime, the lady's partner borrowed a kayak from another camper, tried to get out to his wife to do what he could. And the story was, now we've now got 2 people in trouble out there. We were probably halfway to the scene, and bear in mind progress is slow because we pushed along about 20 into 25 knot wind. Halfway to the scene, we received a further call from Police Water Ops. Both people were safely back on the shore. A group of people ended up carrying the tinny down, a rooftop tinny, down to the beach, and went out and rescued both people. We were asked by police if we could try and retrieve the kayak, because they weren't able to attach that to the tinny or put it on the tinny, and the police didn't want a drifting kayak out in the ocean thinking somebody's fallen off it and they get another rescue. So we were almost on scene, and we had water coming over the roof at this stage, and our crew felt quite confident, so we pushed on and we did locate the kayak. It was around 4 nautical miles offshore in the time it took us to get there. And on that scenario, luck was definitely on their side. But just picture a scenario where there was nobody at Berners Beach with a tinny. Tide was out below. We need 2 metres minimum depth to get our vessel out. The low tide is frequently below 2 metres. So I mentioned a scenario where we couldn't get out there because the tide was out and that person just kept sailing out to sea. Our alternative, if we can't get the boat in the water, is we call on Port Victoria, and in those conditions that's another 2-hour journey by sea, because if we can't launch at Point Certain, they can't launch at Point Certain, they have to launch at Port Vic and then travel down. So that could have been quite serious, luckily it wasn't. Another one, this is fairly recently, this year, person in an inflatable boat being blown out to sea off Flaherty's Beach. Again, he clearly shouldn't have been out in the water in the prevailing conditions. Strong offshore winds, 20-25 knots, but he was out there. Again, we received a call from Police Water Ops, 7:38 p.m, so late in the day, we didn't have a lot of time. Our crew was on the water in just over 15 minutes, and they also dispatched a Sabre helicopter from Adelaide, just in case we were having trouble locating this dinghy. Our crew were on scene and located the person in 32 minutes. The Sabre helicopter was stood down. By this time, he was already 2 nautical miles offshore, and he launched off the beach of Flaherty's. Tide level at this time was 0.4 of a metre. We need 0.2 to cross the sandbar, so it was good, we could get out. But again, just picture the scenario where the call was received, say 11 a.m, tide was 0.17 metre, we can't get out. We had to wait until 2 o'clock when there would be enough water to come back in. In that time, that person would have been 10 to 12 nautical miles out to sea. Extremely difficult to locate. As it was, the person was treated by SA ambulance at the boat ramp. They had ambulance there, dispatched police. He was treated for mild hypothermia and was visibly shaking, so it was touch and go. Our rescues can be time critical. We've got a new state-of-the-art rescue vessel due for delivery this year. For those who don't know, we've got a government grant to replace our 50-year-old rescue vessel, which will cover us we have enough grant to cover a rescue vessel, tow vehicle, and a little bit of alterations ratio to make it all fit. We just need to be able to get out in the water without delay. We're servicing not just our waters, but all of southern Yorke Peninsula, around almost to Marion Bay. We'll have a vessel that's capable, we've got a crew that trained will be capable. We just need to be able to get out in the water. Thanks for your time. Yep.
So basically, I just want to emphasise, we're actually here we'd like just to see a proactive approach from council to push forward, and maybe potentially a forward-looking approach as well, so it doesn't actually get to this state that it is at the moment. Yeah, just think of your time.
I just have questions, Kevin and Ian, probably appreciated. I can just give you an update. We've recently, in the last 2 days, completed the bathymetric survey. That's the first step in lodging a DA. The report will probably take 2 to 3 weeks, and then we got the onerous task of negotiating with the EPA, so that does take time. I'm happy to keep you informed during that process, and I have put a budget bid in for council to consider in terms of a dredging, such a dredge, same as we did 5-6 years ago, just about where we place the sand, and obviously we've got to go through the council approval process. But while we've got Kevin in here, councillors and/or staff, is there any questions or anything they'd like to ask? Clarification? I'll go Mick first and Naomi.
Yeah, just as far as big emergency vessels with the say the Hindenburg and so on, where they're located, is there any onus besides council funding it? Is there any source of funding from the state government because we've got an emergency vehicle, emergency services vehicles there that you can get out?
No. Right. So SADFAC funding is for construction only, they won't fund maintenance activities.
This is my question for you as well. Given, was it 5-6 years ago that it was dredged, you said? 6, 7? 7. Forgive me if you have mentioned this, when we get EPA approval, is there the option to perhaps get ongoing, or approval for ongoing dredging so that it doesn't have to get to this point? Because clearly if it's getting this bad, twice a decade, we're going to have to be more proactive about it, and going through this whole process every time.
Same discussion with DIT today, and I've arranged a meeting with the EPA to discuss exactly what you're all asking now. We just finished Croston, and we're doing bridge at Turton probably starts tomorrow or Friday, a little bit different, or Victoria, sorry. A little bit of a different process, but again, the weed was taken out of our drossing, which was significant, and the algal bloom die off. There's nothing to say that it's not back in a month's time, and we've got to go through that process with DPO again. So, Mayor Kyla's coming down with me and just trying to work out a better process, because it's not just us struggling with the approval process, it's everyone across the state. Anybody else? Look, Kevin, especially Ian, look, I greatly appreciate you coming tonight, and Kevin, if you can just shoot me an email and keep in contact, that'd be great. Greatly appreciate it, Kevin.
Thanks for the invite.
Okay, councillors, we've got a new standing item that we'll have on our information and briefing sessions moving forward. So it's handing over to Mayor Gray, just to as much as to just a quick debrief in terms of the previous council meeting, what's happening and what we're up to, or what we need to do. So, over to you.
So I wanted to introduce this as a standing item to give us a bit of an opportunity to discuss any issues that come out of the meeting, so that we're not then waiting another month before we're back into a meeting. And then we have the opportunity to discuss things openly with each other here in this forum as well. So just a few updates from myself, and then if there's any questions from the council, then we'll deal with them as well. So in relation to the deputation to council at the last meeting from the RDA, you may recall that there was some leave funding. So I have had a discussion with the CEO in relation to the Yorktown green waste, and staff are currently looking into that as to whether we might be eligible for that type of funding for a facility like that. So we'll get back to you if we have any updates on that one. Yes, Ian, won't we? He loves that topic.
I do.
We can chat about that later. All right. So, item 22.1, we're actually going to bring that back. So that was the organisational review. Because we did a bit of a review of all the processes that we were going through during the meetings, I found an error in the process for the variation. So basically, when there's a variation to the motion, we actually need 2/3 majority leave of the meeting in order to include the variation, and then we vote on that, and that is a majority. So there's actually two different numbers there as far as the voting, and effectively it does seem like you're voting on the same thing twice. So I've asked the CEO to bring that one back to the next council meeting, just to make sure that we ratify that correctly. CEO will be providing a report later in this agenda. I'm not expecting any change of outcome when that one comes back.
Just to explain the previous decision, that's the report.
Yes, yep. And then in relation to 23.2, so this was about the road that was at the back of the Bowie Caravan Park. Councillor Meyer requested that an audit be conducted, so I just wanted to let you know that staff are currently underway with that, and so we will be conducting an audit of the caravan parks to see if there's any other issues that arise. 23.4, so this was in relation to the audit committee fees. So we're going to bring that one back to the next meeting as well. I have provided you with an email with some detail on that, so I won't go into too much detail now. But I have also responded to the LGA and requested that they update the meeting procedures handbook, and they have confirmed that they will do that before the next election. So that hadn't been updated for 10 years. So I think that's pretty important that they get onto that. I have got written confirmation though of the things that have changed in that handbook, so that we do have a record of that. And just finally, on that one, 25.1, so that was in relation to Rex Minerals. We have, or the CEO has written to Rex Minerals about that decision of council, and we haven't received anything back to date. So you will be the first to know should we receive a response there. There was just another note that I had as well in relation to a previous deputation. So I keep notes in my agendas and follow them up, but I thought this is a good opportunity for me to share with you what I'm following up between meetings. Northern Yorke LGA, there was some discussion about some funding for some mental health initiatives, and we did follow that up and have a discussion about that. It was drought specific, so unfortunately it's not something that we can access now, but that was just a discussion that we had, so I thought I would let you know that I had followed that up. Was there anything else from you councillors? Councillor Bittner?
It's only a thought that occurred to me in the last day or two in regards to the Rex Roads decision. I thought that elected members could only make a minor amendment to the motion, whereas in that situation, the amendment was to allocate any proceeds, so about $750,000 to a specific project, which makes me think that that's a major alteration. So
that's excellent feedback. And now that we are looking at amendments in great detail, I agree with you, and at that, if there is an amendment at the time that you feel deviates too far from the original, well, that was actually a movement of the original motion, though that wasn't necessarily an amendment, because that one wasn't live at that point, I believe.
Should change the intent.
Yes.
Should be minor in nature.
Yes.
Could be argued either way.
for me, that a $750,000 budget allocation is not minor.
Yes, agreed. From memory, when that was moved, that was the first motion. So in that case, it's not actually an amendment, but
It was
absolutely
a modification to the
of
motion.
the recommendation. Yes.
Recommendation.
Yes, but it wasn't a minor modification. You could argue.
So you can move any motion.
I thought it was could only be minor, because otherwise it's a motion without notice, if you just completely.
If it were an amendment. So if that motion was live and then you suggested an amendment that changed it significantly, then that would be appropriate. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait. Anything else, councillors? No? Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mayor. Nick? Sorry. This is just going to give an update, and this will be ongoing over the next 2 or 3 workshops. Nick, as a summary of probably 4 at a time we'll do and next steps. So hand over to you, Nick, they've been very well received.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for having me tonight. Just an update about our township activation initiative. We've now rolled out to 12 towns, and we've got the draft reports back for the first 4. So to recap, we've covered off on Marion Bay, Corny Point, Edithburg and Stansbury in the first tranche, and then we received some funding to also do Ross and Price, Clinton, Balgowan, Port Vic, Point Turton, Cabowie and Port Vincent. So for each one of those towns, we've done essentially a public meeting that functioned as a workshop so people could do activities. And between that and the survey, we're going to get a really robust data set to tell us what our community members actually want. And thank you, I think every EM here has attended at least 1 or 2 of those meetings, so we appreciate your support coming along. To recap the why, so first of all, this has been at the top of our economic development and tourism strategy, which we endorsed 4 or 5 years ago now, back in Trammy's day, and we were unsuccessful trying to get funding to pay a consultant to do it. So once we appointed Brooke, she's pretty good at having a chat, and I can be too, so we thought we'll just do it ourselves with what money we could scrounge. And yeah, so we had a little bit left over from our workshops budget, which is sort of the main little economic development budget. We've been able to partner with various stakeholders. We're actually delivering more workshops than before, which is not paying for them. So with the money left over, we did the first 4 towns as a bit of a test case, which then allowed us to get a $15,000 grant for the next 8. and that just allows us to pay Lou Burford, who's our consultant, and as you would have seen from attending, she runs everyone through the activities and helps with the data collection and the reports as well, and that just keeps the council staff at arm's length so that she can keep everyone on task essentially. Let's see, is this one moving? I'll just go next slide, thanks. So obviously a bit of effort to run 12 public meetings, but it's going to allow us as a council to know what our communities really want and plan accordingly. We can have a look at what people have asked for and then determine on our end what is achievable, what aligns with our own strategic goals and those of sort of regional development in South Australia and wider state and federal strategies, what aligns with our financial requirements, for instance, what would be classified as asset renewal, which Dan would like to hear me say, and what aligns with various grant opportunities that might be available so we can get these projects organised ahead of time and give ourselves a better chance at achieving some of these grants that do come up. Next, thanks. Another benefit is that we've been visible to our communities and we've hopefully made people feel like they've been genuinely heard. It's also allowed us as staff to explain a little bit more about council processes. We have sometimes we hear from people that like, why hasn't this been funded? And you have a look for them and no one's ever put in a budget bid, so we can explain how that all works. As well as some people have never really gained an understanding of how grant funding works and how you have to apply for grants for certain projects. So we've been able to have those really positive conversations. And a lot of times what people have asked for at these forums just requires like a customer service request. There's people in the gallery tonight who we've been able to just chat to after and address some issues that they brought up. Even Kevin, who spoke just before, has been waiting around for months and months for his grant to come back for like the Art of Bloom fee relief. So we've been able to chase that up with DSD for him and hopefully get a good result there. You can see here we have managed to reach a good percentage of our population. Some people may have attended the meetings and filled in a survey, so take that final bold number with a little bit of a grain of salt, but either way, it's a very good percentage and a robust data set, and it shows the sort of success of these efforts. People shouldn't really be able to say that they disagree or that they didn't have a chance to have their voice heard, because most people knew about it and got along. One pleasing thing was that we did have at most of these town workshops like a good diversity of age range. Like the Port Victoria meeting, we had quite a few members of the Narungga community along too, so it is quite representative as well. Clearly, sort of a good enough, high enough percentage to justify that this really is what the communities are after. Just thought I'd include this. This is one email we got back after the Point Turton meeting, which we knew the community there were not too happy with the boat ramp and a few other issues, and one person warned us we should probably rock up with helmets and shields just in case, but everyone sort of did the activity and it was really positive, and then the progress sort of used it as an opportunity to try to drum up some membership as well, so that was an added benefit. Not only do I like that this sort of says about how it was really good consultation and everything, but also it illustrates to you all hopefully that we haven't been out there over promising things to everyone, knowing our resource limitations. Joe clearly says there, hopefully we can kick some goals in the next 5 to 10 years, so that's kind of the expectations we're trying to set. If we know what you want, the progress knows, and we all row in the same direction moving forward, that's sort of our aim to get a few things achieved in that medium to longer term. So what we actually do with all this information, we're envisaging, we'll have the report that I've shared, and hopefully you've all had a chance to see that. It goes into quite a bit of depth, but we're thinking for each town, essentially one page, here's your top 3 priorities, here's what people love about their towns, and the more robust data can sit behind that as somewhat of an appendix. and then that just keeps us on track. We've got a top 3 sort of community outcomes that we're all going to work towards. And then I guess beyond that, we want to put them all together. So I'm thinking because we know we've got these first 12, put those all together into what's essentially like a township community plan. And the final step would be that we're going to seek a little bit more money. I think we have a budget bit, but we'll also look for grants in the meantime. Just another 10 grand would probably get us through all those central towns that we haven't yet gotten to, just because that initial funding was achievable due to algal bloom. So it'd be really nice. That would be at least Arthur and Maitland, Minlaton, Curry, Yorktown, Waruka, Minlaton, of course. And then then we'd essentially have a finished document at that point, which would be really good. And I think if we could put the first 12 together, we could always add that in after. And we'll share it all back with our communities. The first 4 towns have received sort of their top priorities, so they can tell us if they see any glaring red flags there, or they think that we got it wrong, but we've had no bad feedback so far. Once they all seem happy, then we'll progress to a more formal kind of a document and report back to you all. I think that's about it for me for tonight, but more than happy to take any questions if you wish. Any questions?
Sorry, yeah, that's Nick and Brooke and Louv that attended 3 of the sessions, and everyone was really engaged from the towns, and you could see that they're enthusiastic about being involved, and hopeful that that gives a bit of a base for working on achieving some projects ahead. So I think it worked really well, and the town seemed to be really receptive. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, had mixed amounts of crowds. It was all demonstrated there. Port Vic Win, they had 76. So we had 10 RSVPs, I think. So we're running around the strips trying to put out extra tables and chairs and everything. But it's good that there's that level of engagement for sure.
Well done, Nick, and Brooke is not here as well. Well done, excellent. Okay, Dan, the floor is yours on the LTFP.
Right, my turn to present just on the annual update to the long-term financial plan. So it's working. So the purpose of the long-term financial plan is really to bring a 10-year financial forecast together in relation to council services and infrastructure. What we're looking to achieve is long-term financial sustainability. So we're looking at the impact of the outlay decisions and the income received, and we're really seeking to, in this plan, align council's core goals and core paperwork. So a strategic management plan, a strategic asset management plan, and wrap that up with the financials to work out whether what we are trying to do is achievable. We've heard from Nick just there about the things our community wants, and also the things that we've currently got. They're offering how we go about funding that and make decisions into the future. We're really looking to balance the provision of services, facilities and programs with the financial impact that those services, facilities and programs have on the ratepayers. What the plan includes, we've got revenue and expenditure forecasts, financial sustainability ratios, capital and asset renewal plans, and the funding strategy. So for a bit of context, the plan includes some economic and inflationary assumptions. I don't know whether people have got the document before them, but on page 7, we've got our economic and inflationary assumptions. Growth forecasts on page 9. Major project inclusions on page 16. Ongoing grant assumptions, page 11 and 12, and our asset revaluation estimates on page 15. We'll walk you through some of those in these coming slides. Strategic financial outlook. We're not economists at council, we don't have an economist on council, so we're relying on the Reserve Bank of Australia's projections around what's happening with CPI and price movements. You'll note that today's CPI rate that came out was about 3.8%, a little hotter than what the RBA was looking for and is looking for. We've based our long-term financial plan assumptions around their November economic outlook, which projects out for the next 2 years. Starting with a 3.7% CPI around June and reducing to 2.6 over the plan, assuming that the RBA will get things back within their target range of 2 to 3. It may be up from there, who knows?
Oh, no, can I ask it?
Oh, you can ask a question. I wasn't sure whether you were suggesting CPI should be
Oh,
like the lowest.
Staff shuttle when I had to ask a question. It was mentioned at the audit committee meeting yesterday about the LGPI always being higher. Would it be possible? Do they do forecast figures for LGPI as well?
There's slight forecasts on not many years future for that. It's often quite backward looking, but I believe there is a forecast of which we could have a look at. One of the other price indexes that often does come into play too is the building price index.
Yep.
So what we find, it's a good point, I was going to get to it a little later on, is councils, so we'll probably come on a slide later on, councils' service delivery is specifically, the majority of our service delivery as a regional council is through our infrastructure. So we don't have a whole lot of community programs. We do have some, but we don't. Infrastructure needs to be maintained and replaced. Anyone that's bought a house, or maybe not the best example, bought a car 10 years ago knows that the price for buying a car now is more expensive than what it used to be. Inflation plays a role, but when you're building assets that council has, that movement in price, so the thing you built 10 years ago, or the thing you built 20 years ago, or 50 years ago in some cases, is going to cost a lot more when we come to renew it. And we find that growth in price, or the renewal cost, is actually above CPI.
I guess that's what concerns me is if we're making forecasts out 10 years time and you're using CPI but your building index or your LGPI is 2% higher than that, you know, that's...
It is challenging to budget out and to predict. So what we are factoring into some of our decision making is the fact that we will look at service levels throughout the way. So renewal of roads, are our assumptions about the way we renew our roads and the treatment we perform on roads, maybe the width or the depth of the role that we put on roads, is that actually what we're doing and accurate with what we're doing? And so is there a chance there to reduce costs and stuff like that? But it is a challenge. It is a major challenge when you have $600 million replacement value of assets, roughly, approximately. We've got some revals happening this year, some indexation. If your asset cost is increasing above CPI and you want to keep your rates at CPI, you know, if a significant part of your budget is moving a bit quicker, that's very hard. So that's the challenge and that's the juggle. So coming to CPI rates, it's funny, it's the next point there that our general rates assumptions in the plan are sitting at a CPI plus natural growth plus a very small, moderate financial sustainability levy. So this is capturing some of that growth. There's a 0.5% financial sustainability levy factored into the first 5 years of the plan only. And really that is subject to councils receive an organisational review and be coming back to council. That organisational review suggests that we re-look over our services and consider not only efficiency of them, but also cost savings. And that would be the approach that I think we're planning to take, not speaking on the CEO's behalf, of course, but to look at where we can reduce cost to do that, and where services may no longer need to be offered or may be better offered by the private sector, to consider that as well. So this financial sustainability levy, this modest opening 5%, is something that as we make savings, we look to reduce. The good thing about a long-term financial plan, it gets reviewed every year. So as things move, we get to move and readjust accordingly. I think I spoke about that. Asset values index annual by CPI. And what the plan does, one of the other tricky parts too is what Nick's been out about hearing from the community, and we hear from our progress associations and ratepayers over the phone. People do want more. People want new things and new services. The plan at the moment factors in minimal new and upgrading expenditure. So it's really a business as usual, because each time you build something new, you have new operational costs, and you have new costs to renew in the future, and you have additional depreciation in your balance sheet that affects your profitability. It's It's not to say we can't do that, and often council goes about achieving those new things by seeking to obtain grants that really cover a significant portion of the cost of building new infrastructure. But there's still that ongoing. Once you build something, you need to maintain it. It's very hard to step back from something once you've offered it. So that's a nice, we'll lead into budget discussions soon, so please remember that. It's very hard to take something back once you've given it. Revenue forecasts. Anyone that's a parent would know that too. Revenue forecasts. So council revenue comes in a few major streams. General rates. The general rates as a total includes service charges, so things for bin levies and it's CWS, and flushing toilet systems, and that all gets taken care of magically. You pay for that through your rates notice, but that's part of general rates as well. You pay a tax to the state government through general rates. The statutory charges, so fees, permits, development fees, things like that. User charges, so caravan parks is a great example of that. Grants for operating and capital, investment income, some reimbursements and other. What you can see from what I just wanted to highlight really is the wagon wheel is that I've broken up rates to general rates, so 59% of council's income over the 10-year projections is generated through general rate income, tax on the value of land. The more you own, the more you pay, most likely. Service charges, other rates, 16.2%. That has all of our service charges, CWS and water. They're supposed to be set at full cost recovery. Essential services regulated by SCOSA. We've got our NRM levy in there, which basically comes in the door to council and then goes out the door to the state government. We just
pushing up near 2 mil.
Yeah, it's getting up there. I'm trying to think. It's definitely in the getting towards the mid 1.5, so you're getting towards that. User charges. So that's your fee for service. So unlike tax, fee for community services, user charges are fees for direct services. The caravan parks the lion's share of that. And 11% there for grants. We get some regular grants, we also get some ad hoc grants. It's largely regular grants. And then what's really interesting is our statutory fees. So development fees. Development fees are set by the state government, so we can't really influence that. But yeah, development fees, reimbursements, interest income, all that sort of stuff, 2.2%. The key point there, I suppose, is rates. Rates are the primary source of income for councils. We're not immune from that. We're like most other councils in that regards. We'll continue to look at our rating profile and share of how that's spread across the community as we go through our budget phases. We've got a few more levers to pull than we have had in past years due to the rate review a couple of years ago. And we should just note that early on, we still have, we're not scientists, we're definitely not in my department, not scientists, but we have a harmful algal bloom is hitting us, it's hitting the community, and that's impacting our user charges, particularly around caravan parks and bush camping. We factor a little bit of that into the first year as well. So assuming some sort of stage recovery over the first couple of years, but nowhere near the post-COVID numbers that we've been getting through caravan parks. Operating expenditure forecast, the wagon wheel again. Employee costs, 28% almost. Materials, contract and other expenditure, or depreciation, we all go 36.2. So the biggest piece of the wagon wheel is the financial estimate of the decline in value of our assets. Materials, contracts and other, a lot of that goes into looking after those assets and maintaining the things we do. Finance costs, we're a very low loan council, so we don't have very many loans. In fact, this plan assumes that rather than take out new fixed term loans, that where council needs to access loan finance, we'll access that through our cash advance debenture facility, which is basically like an overdraft facility that the council has there. Our treasury management policy seeks to, based on the LGA model, seeks to have a blend of fixed interest and variable interest loans. And so as we require, we'll dip into that loan at various times throughout the 10 years and then come back as foreseen. And that's quite usual for councils to do that. If we get to a very low interest rate environment again, that's where, and if council had debt, that's where council might seek to lock things away. But yeah, in this regards, it's a fairly much business as usual preparation. So, we've not really sought to do any significant increase to employee FTE, despite us being comparatively low numbers to some other councils. We've got a lot of services and infrastructure we need to maintain. We've heard about boat ramps today. There's that cost escalation we're exposed to. We've got asbestos to deal with this year. We're still waiting to find out how big a cost that is for council. That can impact things too. Depreciation, indexation on revaluations, jetty renewal, and then new upgrade assets will impact that as well. So that's just how we're put together. Capital and asset renewal plan. The previous plans had some projects in there that we might think will get grants for in the future, and we've included those grants. This plan's seen us take out those sort of speculatively beyond a few years in. We've just included the most recent sort of projections of things happening in the next couple of years. So jetty renewal around Edinburgh, Robert Street Maitland second year, and a small allowance for some jetty renewal of some of the other jetties around the peninsula. Obviously, as time goes forward, we'll be able to work out more and more of what we're doing with these assets. We're targeting an asset renewal funding ratio between 90 and 10% annually. What does that mean? We've got a strategic asset management plan, and it's telling us assets need to be renewed in this order, and they'll roughly be this amount. We're trying to target a healthy range of keeping on top of it. It's no good running down your asset base. You're only going to come up with more significant costs for you in the future. I'd like to use the example, you get sick of it, but if you don't service your car, your ultimate service in the end is going to cost a lot more when you get to it, when things start falling apart. Michael will speak later towards a strategic asset management plan, and really that does, we've got a few improvement plan items that we still need to continue to chip away at to help us to achieve those targets. The focus, it sounds boring, the focus is on renewal of existing assets, so in this LTFP, but it's really maintaining what we have for the community. Financial sustainability ratios, giving you a 10-year overview. Where are we sitting? We've got targets. These are the three key financial sustainability ratios, the LGA, what we're required to put into our financial statements and our projections. So we do. One talks about profitability, our operating surplus ratio, target between 0 and 10%. The plan averages a 0.4% positive result, so pretty much break even. As a past finance manager, I'd love to see something like a target of maybe 2%, helping us to respond better to the challenges that come our way, and things like idea that the boat ramp needs dredging again. If you've got a healthier surplus, doing things like that's a lot easier. Our net financial liabilities ratio speaks to our level of indebtedness. Really, it takes into account our assets and current liabilities, but it's quite low. We're a low debt council. It means we've got scope for debt. Debt makes sense to councils where you've got maybe a significant asset renewal or a significant outlay for something new, like say a CWS scheme where it's going to pay for itself through its service charge. But what needs to be kept in mind before taking on new loans is this surplus ratio. The more when you pay interest, that reduces your surplus. So loans help spreading the cost between generations for assets. So imagine we've got a $15 million outlay next year. It's very hard to get from the ratepayers in year one. It's much better to spread something like that over a number of years, and using debt as a way of doing that. Needs to be taken responsibly. And then our asset renewal funding ratio between 90 and 110. We're sitting around 109. That provides us some allowance for one of the things we are working on this year is building a comprehensive marine and coastal assets register. A lot of our marine and coastal assets sit in an asset class, other assets in our financial statements. That asset class isn't revalued regularly. So you can imagine a seagull built 50 years ago, like I said, it's going to cost something different when it comes to renew now. By putting it in a separate class and revaluing it, bringing it into a revaluation cycle, we've got a much better picture of where we sit, and it also gives us a much more solid base for preparing applications of grant funding and looking to fund that renewal.
If we go on, I guess I come from a school environment where you kept a certain amount of funds aside, a bit like you're saying, that 2% surplus rather than 0.4 average. And because we've got such a low loan ratio, I suppose if something major happened, I guess that could be, we've got a facility there, quite easy to borrow more money, I guess, if we had to in a situation. So I guess it's not a way of actually accessing money if we needed to.
One of the things the South Australian mode of the way different states do it differently. So I believe in New South Wales, there's a lot of setting aside of cash funds and quarantining cash for specific purposes, so that you could be jarred a bit for this, put it away, hold on for 10 years. Some of us might do that at home in our own budgets. It's not a bad practice. The South Australian model has us using cash where it's needed, keeping that sort of fluid amount, and then borrowing where it's needed as well in a responsible manner. So it is really, if you can generate a reasonable profitability, you can loan. I think the LGFA, so the Local Government Finance Authority, they tend to go over things like your 10-year financial plan and look at how you've been performing in past results and look at your ability to service debt. So the loans we've asked for lately have just been community loans, fully funded. We haven't had any troubles in that. I don't think we would have trouble in accessing loans from them should that need be required, particularly if they were for things that were funded through service charges and stuff like that. You can see the business case and be able to apply that. Key risks and assumptions. We've probably spoken through some of this. Cost escalation. So what's the negative and what's the positive really? Cost escalation. Key risk. You can tell a financial person's written this, new infrastructure. So I celebrate new infrastructure. I think it's great we do new things for our community. It's a key risk, managing expectations and funding that. So it's not all no, but it just needs to be well thought through. And sometimes that may mean a discussion. I'll say this in the room. It may mean community. Do you want this? Well, that might entail increasing rates above CPI for that. Do you want to be consulted around that? External funding uncertainty. A lot of the bulk of the grants we put in this LTFP are regular, ongoing. But from time to time, funding periods cease, and so there tends to be, the end of the funding period, is there a question mark whether it will go on? And if that happened, we would adapt as necessary. Asset condition changes, do things wear down quicker than what we thought they would, or are our assets lasting longer? Is the condition better or worse than we assumed? And that's really where, I suppose, continued investment by council in our asset management practice, improving it, understanding the condition of our buildings, understanding the condition of our coastal assets, allows us to make informed decisions. So, it's better to spend those few $1,000s working out how things are sitting, rather than spending millions of dollars to fix them later on because we didn't know they were in such and such condition. Legislative changes, if you've got something like rate capping coming or something like that, that would significantly impact council. And given what's happened in Victoria with that sort of stuff. Climate-related risks with coastal erosion, flooding, droughts. Droughts affects our ratepayers base with high agricultural. Climate-related risks. We've seen coastal erosion and flooding as well. Does that impact council assets? Does it impact private assets? Workforce challenges. Like any other business, we're out in the regions, so we do manage to attract people out, but there's big mind going to open up. Will some of our workforce be attracted over to that? Key roles in council as people move on and move, will we be able to attract and retain talent? That continues to be something our HR focuses on. How are we going to try and address those things? Mitigation strategies, service level reviews, so Andrew will speak to that a little later. Annual LTFP and budget reviews. So when we look at our budget quarterly, we adjust things we know are going to happen, and sometimes we make forecasts for the future, and in that case we can pivot. And same with our LTFP. If we're looking to plug new things in, we plug it into the plan, we see what it's going to do, and we decide whether to proceed. LTFP, annual business plan, they're all subject to public consultation too. Responsible budget targets, setting them and trying to stick to them. Review revenue opportunities. We're looking into how we can make the most of the line as it opens up and secure rates off that. Looking at other sectors across our community to see whether we're appropriately rating them. Scenario modelling, as I said, popping in big projects as they come. community engagement and financial decision making with respect to that and asset data improvement. Where do we go from here? Well, I want to bring the LTFTP to you. It's already gone through audit and risk. They've recommended that I do bring it to council to ask to public consult on it. That's where we go next. So, information briefing session, we're at dot point 2. Public consultation after the March meeting is where we hope to go. And then feedback becoming integrated into the final plan, whether it's just comments on the comments we receive from the community, whether it's changes based on circumstances as they arise. And really, I think that local government's probably one of those transparent levels of government where we're always putting stuff out there and, you know, even having meetings with our community, getting face-to-face, hearing what they want, and accountability. These dates, I didn't put it tonight, so tonight's in there, 25th. Council endorsement of March, April, May, and then council adoption, we're hoping for around the 13th of May. Where we use this before I finish, we go, questions and discussion, let's put a couple of items there, you can ask a few, is our LTFP for us in the way we do our budget process really will sit as the guardrails around walking us through as it has in the past. So we use the room, we set our LTFP, and that gives us our first year budget constraints, and we try and fly within those boundaries. So that's how we use it, and also as a model for the future. Happy to take questions, happy to re-explain things, documents out there in the community. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Any questions? Half you were there in the audit committee yesterday, so you should do it again.
I apologise to those who sat for it today.
Thank you, Dan. All right.
Michael, just in relation to our strategic asset management plan, again, afterwards here sat through the same presentation yesterday, so I'll hand over to you, Michael.
Well, I might as well start now. Amy was here yesterday, so just give you a bit of a review on what's been going on with our strategic asset management plan, or the SAMP as we call it. Obviously, it's 12 months roughly since we adopted it last year, so we're reviewing it currently. We're looking using obviously current individual plans, asset register, budget, and we're using the LTFP and the draft one that the finance team have been putting together, and obviously going to council in next month. Things that are going to be covered in this SAMP or the asset registers, particularly obviously we've got buildings and other structures, CWMS, plant, equipment and other assets, which takes in major and minor plant, furniture and other equipment, information technology hardware, and then our other assets register, which takes in boat ramps, seawalls, access stairs and a few other items, walk the Yorke, assets, etc., signage. So there's a fair variety in those other registers, and that's why we're looking at developing the marine and coastal one. We're in the process of doing that now. Also, we've got stormwater transport, which is obviously our road network, footpaths, curb and gutter. We've got airfields and car parks, and we've also got our 4 water schemes. So that's the current valuation of our assets as at last one, or 30th of June last year. That's right. No, it would have been 25, that should say, shouldn't it? It's 26 now. I apologise for that typo. So 556 $1 million is a lot of money. So obviously we need to look after them. So part of the review, we've really had a rigorous look at our current asset registers, and particularly, I suppose we really focus on our road network, our CWMS, stormwater, etc. They're real assets that I suppose are pretty popular in the public domain, so we do focus on them pretty regularly, but probably a couple of other registers, or the plant equipment and other assets, maybe we have not so much neglected, but probably need to have a good look at. And obviously with the development of a new coastal and marine asset plan or register going forward, that's why we really sort of had a deep dive into it. We probably picked up a few assets that may, I suppose, are underutilised or no longer in service, so we've pulled them out of our data and upgraded those registers. We've also undertaken a rigorous review on our buildings and other structures as a register as well, and also transport, mainly the low-use roads in those registers. Obviously, with the transport plan that was endorsed last year, we're undertaking a fair, we're collecting a lot of data on road wear rates. Obviously, you resheet a road today, we use 150 mil of material regularly, and that's what we're coring, and we're going to see how much of that material disappears over each year. So we've started that process. We've obviously got traffic counts on. We've had over 200 sites so far of our road network. And like I said to the audit committee yesterday, unfortunately, developing a hierarchy for our road networks, we've got high and medium use roads currently, but our low use roads, the 200 sites basically show every road is trafficked pretty well similar, so that's a fair challenge there. And obviously there's other data we're collecting as well. So we're really trying to, with our, I suppose, probably proposing a renewal over the next 3 to 5 years particularly, and obviously it's a 10-year plan, we're really focusing on how we can, we're waiting for that sort of data to come through and be used. The plan has also been indexed, so the plan will start as in 26/7. So we've used the building price index for those the valuations used in the stamp. Where are we at? Where's this one? That's better. All right, so probably from our review so far, we've probably got a bit of a low to moderate level of confidence in some of our, like our plant and other register, which obviously we're improving the other assets register at the moment. So hopefully come, well, by the end of May, we should have a very good coastal marine asset register. And obviously values on that as well, and a good condition assessment of that asset class. Buildings is one thing we need to, I think, develop further. We've obviously got a fair few buildings, and obviously we're in a town hall that's 100 plus years old, and we've got numerous buildings like this around the place, so I think that's probably something we need to develop further and focus on moving forward. Obviously we've got service level reviews that are about to be discussed later, and obviously council will work on that going forward. One of the things, going back to the buildings, is I think we probably really need to, and it is an action will come to council in the near future, is develop a classification of a hierarchy for our buildings, such as our offices and depots are probably high priority, our town halls and public toilets will probably sit in that category, and then we'd obviously filter down a level. Transport service levels and renewal methodologies that need to keep being reviewed. Also, I just mentioned what we're focusing on at the moment. We have a roads working party to also discuss moving forward how we're working, how we, I suppose, maintain our road network, and if they've got any solutions and how we can do it better. So that's sort of an action moving forward. And just, I suppose, regular reviews of our asset systems and registers to make sure they're, I suppose, up to date. And any asset anything we do in the asset area, obviously with LTFP and all that sort of stuff, the more we continue to develop this, obviously the better we're going to get at what we're doing. And any organisation is the same, continuous improvement. So the next step, and I didn't put the dates in like Dan did, but we'll bring a draft stamp to council for March to go out for endorsement, to go out in public consultation, and we'll follow the same dates basically, so the LTFP, so looking to be consulted on in March, April, and brought back to council in May for endorsement. Just in that plan, there will be improvement tasks, and it's something that we probably as a council really need to focus on. They obviously give us the steps on areas that we need to focus on to really improve our management of our assets. Just a couple of other things that obviously will impact operating and renewal forecasts moving forward is we're undertaking evaluation of transport assets as we speak. Those evaluations will come back to, they'll go back to our audit committee in, I think the meeting is in May, so they will come back, and obviously I'm assuming the value will increase. With that valuation, there's 4 condition assessments being undertaken by staff. So we're out, like I said before, we're actually coring high and medium use roads for material loss, etc. And of the other 2,500 kilometres of low use roads, doing a inspection on them as well. And we're also out on the sewer road network doing binder tests and all sorts of stuff on the sewer road. So it's been a fair bit of work undertaken by a couple of staff members at the moment. We've got desktop valuations just to ensure that our values are realistic, I suppose. Being undertaken now with desktop valuations, so they'll be indexed by BPI, basically, those 4 asset classes. Next financial year, we'll take a full condition assessment and valuation of our buildings and structures. And last but not least, I've already mentioned the Coastal Asset Marine Plan that's we've gone out with our current registers and audited them with what's out there, with inspecting and condition assessing all those assets. So, like Daniel said before, there's those assets haven't been revalued; they've just gone in as their construction costs. So that'll be interesting to see how those valuations come back in the near future. And that's about it, so I'm open to any questions.
Anyone? Come on. Andre?
All right.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, councillors, we'll just move on to the organisational review. Just the last council meeting, Councillor Fleur specifically asked if we could come back. I know, Councillor Bitter, if we could workshop next steps to go through, which I think is a very good idea. What Councillor Fleur did ask was in terms of he thought a lot of the actions that came out of the KPMG review were operational in nature. So look, there is a quick little summary there of the actions, the effort and importance is what KPMG put forward. So I would just run down basically council or administration, so everything except the service reviews, which are all council's responsibility. That's all your decision making. The rest is in play or in progress. And look, I'll just provide updates as we go along to council. Plenty of information, of course, a lot of that we do anyway currently. The big thing, which will take realistically a couple of years at least, is a full service level review. So again, we need all the councillors in the room to go through it, but just to start the process, I've attached in SharePoint for you all a list of, I guess, core and discretionary services per directorate. So when you get time, if you could just run run your eyes over, is there something that I missed or something else you'd like added on? And then what I'll do, I'll sit down with the managers and directors and we'll start workshopping all of those services in terms of giving a rating of community value, organisational strain, and then come up with what we think is a draft prioritisation. Okay, so what do we tackle first? You know, it may well be things like leisure options as example that we first review, caravan park operations, whatever, but we'll bring them back as a draft and then we'll workshop them with the council. We'll go, have we as staff got, I guess, well, everything covered, one, but these are things that we aren't going to touch, we aren't going to review, so have some agreement on that, and then here's the prioritisation list to do everyone happy, and then we'll go away and start working on how do we then bring that back for you. And like Dan was said in terms of the LTFP, whilst there's that 0.5% sustainability levy in the first 5 years, it's 9% where operational savings come through, they offset that in the plan. So not a lot of work to do tonight. We really do need everyone here, or as best we can. But yeah, we'll start work on that straight away. So really it's just an update, and yeah, if I have any feedback from you all just on that list of services there, and we'll get that underway.
You want feedback before that comes back?
Oh yes, please. Maybe in the next week or so. You just run your eyes over it for me, and is there something I missed? Really? And then we'll go away and work on it. Hopefully I haven't. So just a quick one there on the organisational review. Just before I go to the other business, just before I left the office, I had a call from the Premier's office, Scott Pelton, just in relation to the Apple Bloom, and tell me your email today. It's just you couldn't script, as I said, your grant today, the Apple Bloom getting Port Vic just before the 150 celebrations. It's terrible. The whole thing is terrible. The grant just rang to say that they will be holding a community session at Port Vic next week. Okay. I said, you do realise that the 150th kicks off Friday.
Yeah.
It's a long weekend, but
so is this another government like
yes,
calling point?
exactly the same.
Do they have to? But honestly, they come over and they give exactly the same information. They're not going to give us any more new information. And what the people at Port Vic need is help on the ground. So they'll come over and they'll say, oh, you know, the levels are up. I'm going to send an extra 7 field people here to keep testing. They're doing all this testing, not doing anything with the information. And the bloom just keeps travelling and keeps killing everything in its path. So them coming over a couple of days before Port Vic, they're just under the pump getting ready for the 150th. They've got, you know, everybody that they can pulling out all stops to get signs up around the town, cleaning up around the town. You know, the last thing they need is to organise a community meeting in their hall, because in fact they're using that hall to put things in, to then, you know, store things, get things out. You know, it's going to be a logistical nightmare for them.
I'll relay that back. I'll ring her up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And have that discussion. I did say to him, you realise the big event is coming.
Yes.
The timing is not good.
No.
I'll relay that back again. But they seemed fairly adamant they were coming from the Premier's office, and we're also having a session at Point Piers.
No, I mean, they can speak directly. They need to speak to the community. You know, they need to talk to the Progress Association and get a feel. I mean, they might say, yes, come over, but I went to their meeting on Tuesday night and they're all, it's all hands on deck to get this, they're pulling this together. And if they have to clear the hall and, you know, have potentially a full hall there, and then they're not necessarily going to alarm people, they're just going to be telling people the same thing that they've been telling people at every other forum. They don't have any new information, it's all the same. We know exactly what's going on with this bloom, we know the it's moving, how quickly it moves. When it was at Corny Point, we all sort of knew that it was going to hit Warwick about this time because of the timing of the movement. So, yeah, you don't have to take my word for it. I think we need to talk to the people at Warwick, but I reckon it'll just be a logistical nightmare for them to have to hold this meeting when they're only 2 days out, 2 or 3 days out from their major event.
I'll reiterate again tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Do we have any other urgent general business? Andre? No. All right. Thank you, everyone. The briefing session closed at 6 p.m. All right. Have a good night.